voice of God now Adam and Eve heard in the garden. They heard and hid themselves. God thus to Adam called aloud, "Where art thou, Adam? Where art thou, Adam? I miss thee here, not pleased, thus entertained with solitude." He came with Eve, discountenanced both and discomposed. Love was not in their looks, but apparent guilt and shame and perturbation and despair. Adam thus answered brief, "I heard thee in the garden, and being naked hid myself." The gracious judge replied, "That thou art naked, who hath told thee? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I gave thee charge thou shouldst not eat?" Adam, sore beset, replied, "This woman, whom thou madest to be my help, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat." The sovereign presence thus replied, "Tell me, woman, what is this that thou hast done?" Eve, with shame nigh o'erwhelmed, thus replied, "The serpent me beguiled, and I did eat." Which, when the Lord God heard, to judgment he proceeded. God sends the archangel Michael to remove Adam and Eve from the garden. Michael the archangel soon drew nigh, not in his celestial shape, but as a man clad. "Adam, to remove thee I am come, and send thee from the garden forth." In either hand the hastening angel caught our lingering parents, and to the eastern gate led them direct. They, looking back, all the eastern side beheld of paradise, so late their happy seat. The world was all before them. They, hand in hand, with wandering steps and slow, through Eden took their solitary way. In the spring reading and presentation of Paradise Lost, we will also display two 17th century editions of Paradise Lost. One book is from the library of Lady Pomfret, who was a very intellectual, noble woman, and she was actually the lady of the bedchamber of Queen Caroline in the early 18th century. And this is her book label in our copy of Paradise Lost. This actually is the first illustrated edition of Paradise Lost. Here we have the frontispiece showing the famous illustration of John Milton, and also a little poem dedicating Paradise Lost by John Dryden. This book was published in 1688 by a very famous publisher, Tonson. And Jacob Tonson was actually the publisher of William Shakespeare also. This is the first major illustration of a book of English verse, and it's remarkable for that, and perhaps as important as the very first edition. This edition is actually the fourth edition of Paradise Lost, but the first in large paper format and with absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous illustrations. In this particular plate, in this edition, we have the expulsion of Adam and Eve from paradise. And here we have the Archangel Michael expelling very sorrowful Adam and Eve. And actually, in Milton's poem, he says the Archangel Michael soon drew nigh, not in his celestial shape, but as a man clad. And I wondered if actually the Archangel should have wings here because he's as a man clad. So in my version, I removed the wings. This 17th century edition of Paradise Lost, the 1688 fourth edition, is the very first book to be sold by subscription. And it was purchased by, or subscribed to by various nobility, and also by John Dryden. His name is in this book too, as a subscriber. Very nice to have this list. So here's Dryden's name in here. Now, Lady Pomfret was actually a great scholar herself, and she had a very fine hand, and she copied many of Dryden's works, probably Milton's works too, and gave them out, in some cases to, you know, the queens, or kings, or dukes, or whatever, her friends. So, having one of her books from her library, her personal library, is a very great honor indeed. Now, our other edition of Milton's Paradise Lost, 17th century, first illustrated edition, is from the library of the famous English poet Charles Lamb. And it says here, purchased at Edward Moxon's sale by Francis Jackson. And in fact, we have Jackson's book label here, in which he describes, it's described who he is. Both of these books, by the way, are now property of the Yuko Foundation and will remain in its library.